Hey, this is Steve Bloom, and you are listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Today on episode 65 of the Cinema Geeks,
we bring you the next in our series of the best of the half-decade list.
And it's all about the comedies this time as we count down our top 10 comedies from 2010 to 2014.
Along with the countdown, we give you our feelings on the state of the comedy genre and the stars that this decade will be known for.
All that and more coming up on episode 65 with the Cinema Geeks. Dun, 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 dun.
Okay. Yo mama.
Yo mama. All right. All right, thanks for joining us once again here on the Cinema Geeks for episode 65. And as you heard in the intro, we're talking about our top 10 comedies this time. So we're continuing the series that we started early on in the year. So far, we've gone over science fiction and fantasy. We've gone over our top 10 animated films, our best superhero/comic book films. And now we're making our way into the standard genres here of comedy, action, and drama before we wrap it up with some fun lists at the end of the year. And like we've done with all of the previous lists, we're bringing on some special guests each time to help us weed out what the best of the best is from these last 5 years. And before we get there, let's first go over which Cinema Geeks are here with us today. As you could hear in the intro, we have Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. We have Amanda Hard Candy Mandy. Hello.
Sapnin.
And, of course, I am Optimus Solo, and joining us this week from the Tru Bromance podcast, making his first appearance with the Cinema Geeks, is none other than Mr. Barry. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
How are those wings treating you?
Oh, man, I'm telling you, it's like, my stomach is I look like I'm wearing a barrel. That's how big my belly is right now. It's just not good.
And anybody that listens or follows to the Tru Bromance guys knows that they enjoy themselves some wings.
That's right. It's the best food there is.
So, Dan, how's your week been going? And are you ready for another top 10 list?
I am not ready at all. No, not at all. Not in the least. I'm going to put that out there. Not that proud of this list, I'm going to say. I'm like, really? Guess that's making it. All right.
We should probably put it out there, though, that I think out of all the genres, we can probably all agree that this is the most subjective, just completely, I don't know, like we kind of knew where we were going with some of those other lists. Yeah, there were differences amongst our lists, but it was a little more straightforward in some of those other genres. But comedy is just kind of like up in the air, and I'm with you. I know this is kind of sneaking ahead to what we'll talk about at the end with the state of the genre, but this list was really hard for me to put together, and I, like you, Dan, am not super proud of my list.
Whatever, I am set, dude. I've got a ton of lists. I did all kinds of research.
She's got extra lists on top of lists.
Nice.
So,
oh my gosh.
Come at me, bro. Come at me, bro.
I didn't plan on it, but I guess if you're asking, there you go.
I am.
So Amanda's proud of her list.
What's the over-under on the amount of Adam Sandler films on your list? Just asking.
I'm trying to go off of the animated list we did and the over-under on sequels that will appear on her list.
Whoa, bro. You don't have to make a trend just because I like some animated sequels.
But besides that, week's going okay. I have officially been trying to cut the cable cord. I've purchased Amazon Fire. Been trying that out. It's been interesting. It's partake in Sling TV, which is it's like cable from 30 years ago with only like 20 channels, but it's not too bad, you know. It's streaming ESPN and just the essentials. So just gonna see how that goes. Trying to get as far away from Comcast as I possibly can. So.
We cut that cable cord a year ago, something like that. We are basic cable. We get 4 channels and Netflix and Amazon Prime. So
I mainly kept it for HBO, but now that you can get HBO on its own, I can officially get it. So.
Yeah, it's definitely saving us a lot of money every month as Comcast continues to try to take over the world.
Communist cast.
But, Amanda, you got some interesting news this week. I don't know if you're ready to share anything on the air, but put you on the spot.
Oh, shenanigans.
She's going legit.
Made it to the big time. I just got offered a position at the local radio station here, so
nice.
Be starting out doing the Saturday night dance party at on one of our local, the big time radio station here. It's a top 40 station. So I will be an official radio personality.
Like from 7 to midnight every Saturday night.
Wow, like
Sunday.
actually on the radio. That's impressive.
And possibly Sundays,
Yeah.
working into her own show outside of the dance party.
Yeah, 50,000 listeners. Be crazy.
So
Across
about the same audience as Cinema Geeks. So.
roughly.
She's leaving us behind, Dan.
Yeah.
I'll still be here, for the
Interesting
geeks.
enough, the reason this came about was because of a movie-going experience. So we were at Southpaw on that advanced screening, and she ran into somebody that she has known for a long time from the radio station, and that's how it kind of all got going. And he's actually listened to at least an episode or so of the Cinema Geeks to see how she sounded, and I guess that was good enough. So we're doing something right.
All right.
So-
We're making her look good, I guess, apparently.
Yeah, well, we're so bad that it makes her sound good.
Oh, okay.
Taking one.
I see how.
Yeah.
Barry, besides your wings, your wing fiasco, how's your week been going? It's only been a couple days since I talked to you.
Yeah, no, man, it's going good. I'm a bachelor this week. My wife and the kids are out of town, so I've been a glutton. There's lots of movies and golf and beer and bad food, so I'm paying the price as the week goes along. But it's been fun. So,
Barry, most people probably won't be listening when we get to the end, so we're going to let you get a chance right off the bat.
A lot of faith.
When they hear some
tuned
of our
out by
listeners.
now, they've tuned out a long time ago. So
So we're going to give you a chance at the beginning instead to pimp out your stuff and how people can listen to you or follow you guys online.
oh, okay, yeah. So, I mean, we're everywhere podcasts can be found. You can find us on iTunes or Stitcher. We are the Tru Bromance Film Podcast. If you want to find us on Twitter, we are Tru Bromance Cast. That's true without an E because my co-host is horrible at spelling. We do have a website. It's TruBromanceFilm.com. It is a site, all our shows are there, so if you'd like to just stream them and not download them to your phone, you can go there. So, yeah, we've, we're the basic places, so.
Awesome. And it's definitely worth a listen.
That's an amazing show.
It's a real fun and entertaining movie discussion. So anybody that likes fun and movies, check out Tru Bromance. That's Amanda, why are you looking at me like that?
He's like, fun and movies. That's all you need. Fun and movies.
And you should definitely check out their last episode because I was I was the guest when we talked about Southpaw. And then you should continue listening for at least one more week and check out Amanda when she shows up for her guest appearance as well.
Just 2 more weeks. That's all you
The
need.
2-part Cinema Geek invasion of Tru Bromance.
Get them out of the way back-to-back weeks.
Don't have to deal with us again for a while. All right. So let's get into this. Dan, let's start with you as far as any type of how do you tackle this genre, and what was the criteria you used, or how did you go about this whole process?
I guess the one thing I did, this is probably one that I did have some criteria for, and that is that you always get those like comedy dramas. It's like, is it a comedy? Is it drama? Is it both? The dramedies per se. I tried to stick away from those, though some of those are like the funny, like, just hopefully I don't take anyone's choice, but like Nebraska, it's probably one of the funnier films I've watched in the past year, but I don't necessarily think it's a comedy. So I try to go with this legitimate straight comedy. It's like if you're going to go percentage-wise, it's at least 70% comedy for the most part. So and that's
what made this list hard.
Yeah, it made it even more difficult because I was looking at it at first. I'm like, I don't know if any of these are actually comedies or they're just drama that are occasionally funny. So I had to redo it. But besides that, and I did put, like I said, a quota on Adam Sandler films. I can only put 3. There's so many to choose from. So it was hard to bear down. So
I had the same rule with Will Ferrell. So no, I was the same way as you though.
I'll say that.
I had a bunch of dramedies, so to speak, that I was considering, and I was like, if I'm going to start including them, then it's going to take over the entire list. And so I nixed as many of them as I could. I think there might be one that some people might say is not fitting your 70% comedy, but I nixed all the other ones to try to make it as most about straight comedies as I could. Amanda, what about you?
I realize that I've seen a lot of comedies, but I've also not seen a lot of comedies. So this list is going to be super personal, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack from it.
When do you ever get flack from the list?
She gets flack all the time on Twitter.
All
I give it to her.
All the friggin' time. Barry, Hyro, you guys just are on that ass, no matter what I say.
Some of your choices are really out there, I just got to say.
Yeah, it's going to be a theme here, too. But I did eliminate anything animated, just because, animated, it's going to be funny at some point. We just did the animated list, too, so that's kind of redundant. That's about it. This is all about what I want on my list.
All right, it's all about you. Barry, how'd you go about coming up with your list?
Yeah, I kind of followed Amanda's protocol. I eliminated the animated films because I know you guys did the best animated of the half decade.
So you listen.
I do listen. Okay, I try to get through them.
They're long.
Well, you guys show's long, and then I can only listen to podcasts on the way to and from work, really. So it takes me about 40 minutes, give or take. So, and I have a bunch of shows that I try to listen to. So sometimes I get behind, but so I try to eliminate animated films, and then I, much like everyone else, I try to stay as close to just pure comedies as I could. But there's a couple on my list that definitely kind of teeter to that, comedy, romance, drama genre, but not that many. So, all
right, I think we're all set then. Let's get it started with Barry. Why don't you kick us off here with your number 10 choice?
Oh, okay. Well, I got one question. So if I have one that's like number 10 and one of you has it like further down the list, do you want to wait to talk about it then, or do you want me to just expound on it and you'll talk about it when we get to your numbers?
Yeah, go ahead and expound on it while it's in your slot, and we'll save our thoughts for when it comes up on ours.
Okay, so sounds good. So for my number 10, then I have This Is the End. This is the Seth Rogen, James Franco, just that whole crew gets together, kind of the end of the world apocalypse movie. I actually went to see this with my co-host Hyro. He was up to town, and we kind of wanted to go see a movie, so we saw this together. And I really thought this was very funny. It's kind of the characters in the movie all play themselves. James Franco's James Franco, but just kind of maybe an exaggerated version of himself. And there's just really a lot of good jokes and one-liners and kind of gags in this movie as well. And there's a cameo. I don't want to give away who it is, but there's a cameo by an actor at near the end of this movie it's one of the best cameos of the past 10 years. I laughed and laughed and laughed. So this movie for me just really worked. I've only seen it the one time, but it still stuck with me. So that's why This Is the End comes in at number 10 for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick, and I'm kind of the same way. I've only seen it one time, but I liked it. I don't know why I haven't given it a rewatch, but I too like the fact that none of them let their egos get in the way or whatever. They were all willing to kind of let themselves be a caricature of themselves, so to speak.
They just let it fly.
Yeah, just have fun with it. And I enjoyed that movie much more than I thought I was going into it. So I definitely like that pick.
Yeah, that was actually teetering. I had my 10 choice in that, going back and forth a few times. And I pretty much agree with Barry said. And I love how just what it says about celebrities in general. And there's a lot of really good cameos too. When some Harry Potter stars show up, I enjoyed that as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of the humor you get with a Rogen type comedy, but a little bit more. And it's just I think that cast of characters works really great. And Danny McBride has one of the best movie entrances ever in that film. So.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple scenes that I wasn't expecting to see that stick with you in that film. Amanda, what did you think of the Harry Potter? You've seen this film, right?
Yeah. I'm actually not going to say too much about this yet.
All right, so she definitely agrees with your pick. What's your number 10, Amanda?
I'm going to go with, this might be the first one. Barry, you want to reach out and say something?
Okay.
Tammy from 2014.
Oh, my God.
And it starts like that.
So,
Have you
is this
only
the
seen
first
10
of many
comedies?
Melissa McCarthy movies that's coming down the pike? Is that a chance?
It could be.
Wait, Barry asked you a serious question.
You've only seen 10 comedies since you is that how this is on there?
If this didn't touch your heart a little bit, then I don't know what's wrong with you. And she was willing to share those pies, let me tell you.
A deer jumped out in front of my car.
I'm terminating your employment at Topper Jacks, and I need your badge.
What badge? You mean my name tag?
Yes, exactly. I need your badge. I need your badge
It's not
back.
a badge, it's a name tag, and you made me buy it with my own money.
That's company policy. I need it back.
Well, I need you to stop sweating through your shirts and grossing everybody out.
It is hot, and when it's hot, people sweat. It's how
Not
it
like
is.
that.
Tammy, you have already been fired. I have already terminated your employment. You are at least 40 seconds fired, so please exit the Topper Jacks.
Fine. You know what? I'm gonna give you this.
Tammy,
I got it here.
it's your middle finger.
Nope. Pooh. Read between the lines.
I knew that you were gonna do it, Tammy, so it's not as good. I get it, Tammy.
Pooh, you get that?
What is that?
Little version of this. You know what?
You are no longer an employee of Topper Jacks. Oh.
Enjoy the special sauce.
Those buns are all still good. Just change the hats.
Boom. Later, dummy.
How about a...
I really like this. I like her frumpy self in this, and Susan Sarandon, an old crotchety lady. I'm cool with it. I liked it a lot.
I would comment on it, but I can't remember anything about it. I think I've like erased it from my memory, so I don't remember what this movie's about.
I'm about to erase your face from my memory.
I think you started by saying this list is subjective, and I think that it's given the point right away. So
It's subjective until you say Tammy, and then it's just wrong. I think.
At least we don't have to worry about any of us holding off on comments until a later point with this one.
Shut up.
Oh, I'm just kidding. I can't wait to hear the rest of your list. I have not peeked at her list. I don't know anything about it. I'm anticipating every pick. Dan, what is your number 10?
I mentioned I was going with This Is the End and this other my number 10 choice, and I was going back and forth, but I figured we talked about this at the end some point, so I went with this, and I chose this movie for two big reasons. Seven Psychopaths, and number one reason I think is for the writing of Martin McDonagh. He makes this story starring Colin Farrell about this struggling crime author who gets kind of in this caught up in this ring with this kidnapping of a crime boss's dog, and this ends up being this really meta story about crime genre, and there's so much going on in each scene. But even without that, I think what's really funny about it are just the performances of people like Sam Rockwell and Christopher Walken, who reminds you that, yes, he can actually be funny and be a good actor and be in a movie that's not awful. And also even like Woody Harrelson, who's always great. He knows how to be menacing and still really funny. And Colin Farrell actually works as a good straight man. So I ended up really liking this movie. And I guess you could maybe argue it's not completely comedy, but I think what makes it comedic are the performances and just the idea of it. I think it has a lot of interesting things to say and play with when it comes to the crime genre.
Are you saying that Balls of Fury was not a serious... Was that the name of that movie? The ping pong one with Christopher Walken?
Well, I mean, that didn't happen in this decade, so I can't...
That's true.
Can't put it in this one, so...
I haven't killed anybody since 1983 or whatever he said.
All right. Yeah, I haven't seen Seven Psychopaths, so I can't comment.
It is streaming, I believe, on Amazon and Netflix, or one or the other, so you can watch it for free.
Man, there's already so many movies on my list.
You should move Seven Psychopaths up. It's good. I like it. I am a huge Sam Rockwell fan, and he absolutely crushes it in this movie. So
nice. I like Sam Rockwell too, so that your guys' recommendation and Sam Rockwell being in it, that's enough to move it up on my list. For my number 10, it's a movie that we kind of talked about a few weeks or months ago, Dan, because it was one of the ones I gave you as homework. I did not expect it to actually make my top 10, but process of elimination, I was left with put Tammy on my list or put something else, and I went with something else. And I'm going with the 2010 film Date Night with Steve Carell. Again, I don't think this necessary. This is probably a better example of why my list is not very good. But I don't know. I like Steve Carell. I like Steve Carell. I don't think this was his best comedy of the decade, but I enjoyed this one enough, and I thought Marky Mark was funny in this, and Steve Carell was funny, and it was just a good time and kind of just a refreshing comedy that made me laugh more than twice, which is what most comedies seem to do these days. So
you don't laugh at anything, that's why.
I have no soul. Date Night is my number 10.
Yeah,
I'm hilarious, and he hardly ever laughs.
She always gets upset because I don't laugh out loud.
I was going to say, I'm like, that was funny, like expecting him to laugh.
And I'm like, I giggled
funny.
inside.
Is it when you're quoting Tammy? Is that the problem?
Obviously, you can see why, her sense of humor. No, I'm just kidding. She's super funny. I just don't laugh very much out loud.
He admits it.
I'm going to stop talking. Barry, save me. Go to your number 9.
All right, my number 9 is a movie. I wonder if you guys have seen it. I really like this. This is another movie I actually watched with my co-host on another trip up here to visit me, and it's In a World.
Yes.
This is it's a bunch of voice actors. It's very meta, and it's really funny because this movie takes these like the people that do over the trailers and the animation movies and stuff, and it really kind of gives them these egos that you expect to see on major league movie stars, but they're kind of the B level, so everyone around them is also at the B level, and it's just really, really funny. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the name of the
Lake Bell.
Lake Bell, thank you. Yes, I think she's really great, and she's so funny. Like she actually has voice talent. The way she kind of goes around and mimics and stuff, just so funny in this movie. And it just really works. It's for a kind of a female-driven comedy, which I don't always like. I mean, maybe I'm a sexist pig, or maybe they're just not funny. I don't know, but this one really works for me, and I just really love In a World.
Yeah, good choice. I agree. It's quite good. And Kevin, I know you have a soft spot for voice actors, so I think you would definitely enjoy it. And it's got a really good supporting cast too, like Tig Notaro's in there and Dimitri Martin. It's got a lot
of funny people in there. Yeah, for sure.
So
apparently, this episode is just going to be an episode where I just have to write down everybody else's pick as movies that I should probably check out. Maybe I have a wrong opinion about comedy this decade because I haven't seen these good ones. Amanda, I'm afraid to ask, but what's your number 9?
You check it. I have Ted from 2012. I think that it was a good one. It was a good breakout film for Ted. They even followed it up later and gave it a sequel, and I could not put that sequel on my list, but I also enjoyed that. If there was a panda version of Ted, I'd definitely be Marky Mark in that movie. But I had a ton of fun with this. I'm a big Mark Wahlberg fan. I think he's hilarious. Really don't give a crap about Mila Kunis, but everything else was spot on for me with this.
Nice. This is that.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I actually really like Ted. I think it's it's a little crass, but not that bothers me. But I mean, it's
obviously.
Yeah, obviously. But I really think it is funny. There's a lot of really good solid moments in this movie that are legitimately laugh out loud funny. So.
All right. So much better pick than your number 10. Good job. All right.
I got a good job, Pat, for that. You guys can see it.
Dan, what's your number 9?
My next one. I guess this might be a pretentious pick because it's a foreign film, but the actual movie is not pretentious at all. It's very, I guess you would say, crass or raunchy, and it's a Danish film called Clown, but again spelled incorrectly, Klown. I guess that's how they spell it there. And it's a comedy based upon this guy who is trying to get married and trying to prove that he can be a good dad, so he ends up kind of kidnapping a 12-year-old and bringing him on this canoe trip. And it has the style and of something like a Curb Your Enthusiasm, but the execution of like a Family Guy, because it's very raunchy and it definitely pushes the boundaries. I feel like there's a lot of stuff in this that they would not be able to get away with American audiences. So it may not be for everyone. It definitely does not hold back. But it's hard for foreign comedy, I think, to really work because there's so much lost in translation with text and trying to read, and you're trying to react to something as your brain's a little bit far behind. But I thought overall that didn't bother me too much with this, and I think it ended up being rather funny and enjoyed it quite a bit.
Barry, have you seen this one?
I cannot comment because I have not seen it. So
it is streaming on Netflix. So
I wrote it down. So
Dan, you should be a spokesman for Netflix.
I've been trying to. They do not return my calls ever.
I love it. All right, my number 9. I guess I didn't realize I have a theme going with my number 10A and my number 9. This is also probably the one that you could probably say breaks somewhat of my rule because I don't know if this is necessarily really a straight comedy. It's probably the one on my list that's not as much straight comedy as the rest of them because it's a little bit more probably of a coming-of-age film. But I'm going with The Way, Way Back from 2013 with the aforementioned Sam Rockwell and, of course, from my number 10, Steve Carell again. So I guess I must have a soft spot for Steve Carell. I forgot he was in this movie until I just lined these two movies up next to each other. But I don't know. I thought this movie was funny. I'm also a sucker for coming of age films, so I guess that might have helped it get on my list. But compared to some of the other ones, I thought this tilted just a slightly more edge towards the comedy side compared to a lot of the other coming of age films we've had in the last couple of years. So The Way, Way Back makes my number 9.
I definitely think like the scenes in the amusement park very much are like reminiscent of like your like classic 80s type of comedy. So I can kind of see it. I ended up kind of disqualifying this because I thought it felt a little bit, like I said, a little bit more dramedy than comic. But I can see the argument.
I was stretching, Dan.
Yeah.
I was stretching.
Hey, like I said, there's not much it's slim pickings. So
All right. So that makes it time for everybody's number 8. Barry, where do you go for that one?
All right, so my number 8, this might be my Tammy. But I have a
Identity
possible.
well, it's not actually Tammy, but I have a real soft spot for Ryan Reynolds, and when he teamed up with Jason Bateman for The Change Up, I was kind of in heaven, and this movie to me is just so funny. Like, I laughed and laughed and laughed. It's basically Freaky Friday, but with two guys and more raunch, and it just really works for me because the guys are obviously they're polar opposites, and obviously the cliched body switch movie where they kind of both help each other kind of get over respective humps and problems and relationships, etc. But it's just done really well. It's done really funnily, I think. Really funny. I don't think that's an actual word, funnily, but I really like how funny it is. And also, like, I'm also a big Atlanta Braves fan, and this takes place in Atlanta, so they actually go to a Braves game. So it warms my cockles. So I really like The Change Up.
Amanda, have you seen this one?
No, that was on my list of things I didn't see, but when I heard Ryan Reynolds and more raunch, I kind of think I'm down.
Yeah, it's good stuff. He's shirtless a couple times, so.
Ooh, I might have now. So.
I might have unfairly written this one off because this is one of the ones that just based on the premise I couldn't bring myself to watch, so I have not seen this one either.
I don't think I can vouch for this one, but I personally think it's funny. I don't think a lot of people would think this is funny, but it really works for me.
Dan, have you seen this one?
No, I just remember it getting bad reviews, so I'm like, I'll just choose other things. I always forget like that one, and there was the Switch she had. I keep those two always. Yeah,
the Switch is with Jennifer Aniston. I've seen that one too. That one I don't think is as good, but
yeah.
It's got your chick in it though, Barry. It's got your main lady.
Yeah, that's true. That's my girl, but she's not good in that. So.
Yikes.
All right, Amanda, number 8.
This is my one and only cheat, so let me have it. And I'm going to go with the Jump Street movies, 21 and 22, from 2012 and 2014. We can keep up with that. I think that it was funny in its own right, and it even made fun of itself for being the same movie again. And I found that funny in 22 Jump Street. And I think that a lot of even some of the supporting roles of like Ice Cube and some of the scenarios that they go through are pretty hilarious. And I'm all about the Channing Tatum anyway, so it's my number 8.
And I will say nothing for now. So
I will. Yeah, you mentioned 2 movies, and I'm not going to say anything because one of them may appear later on.
I'll say you could have had 1 at 8 and 1 at 9 and bumped Tammy out of your top 10, but other than that,
okay. Yeah, right. You could have saved yourself that. Nice. Dan, what's your number 8?
All right, my number 8. That's a good question.
You're still trying to decide.
No, my number 8, it's weird. It depends on where this movie has different titles depending on what country you're watching it. It's called Alan Partridge, Alpha Papa, starring Steve Coogan. And I guess I never heard of this character, Alan Partridge, but I guess it's one of his most infamous characters. He's been playing it for years, but it's like this radio DJ who ends up being in a situation where his DJ or his radio station gets taken over and taken hostage by this crazed gunman. Kind of like, think of Airheads, but funny. So, and I think what makes it work is Steve Coogan. He is in this character of Alan Partridge. He just has an unabashed ego and tries to use the situation kind of this to further his career because he's kind of on the out. He's seeing that his career is kind of coming to an end. So it's just kind of wackiness, and if you like the Steve Coogan's humor, it's a little dry for some people, but I ended up really liking it, and I didn't think I would because I went into it not knowing anything about the character, but you really don't need to. It's self-contained and works really well.
Another one
Crickets.
I have to add.
Yeah,
another one I have to add to my list.
I've not seen this, and I have to admit, I've seen The Trip with Steve Coogan, and I didn't find that one particularly funny, so when I saw this with his Alan Partridge, I just decided to kind of keep browsing through Netflix. So.
I would say if you don't like The Trip, you would not like Alan Partridge.
Okay. I think maybe The Trip was a little, for me, it was oversold. It was like, this is the funniest movie of the past 3 years, yada, yada, yada. When I saw it, I mean, I think it's funny, but just, I have a problem with impressions. Like, it's a skill, but is it just necessarily funny? I don't know. So that's why I didn't like it.
Dan, I'm not sure how I feel about our homework for next week.
Well, let's say we'll talk about The Trip later tonight.
All right. For my number 8, it's already been talked about, so I will be in agreement with Amanda about Ted. That came in at number 8 for me. I thought that was probably going to be a train wreck, and it surprised me because a lot of the stuff that Seth MacFarlane's tried to do outside of his formula in Family Guy hasn't worked, and even at times in Family Guy it hasn't worked. But I like Ted. I thought it was funny. I thought Mark Wahlberg worked. I thought the Ted character himself worked, even though it was a bit crude and whatnot. But just, I mean, for the name scene
not
alone,
bad, actually. I met a girl. She's a cashier.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wait, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then adding the
double
whatever,
date
adding the
something. You,
Lynn
me, and
to all
Laurie,
the
and
names.
what's her name?
White trash name, yes.
Tammy Lynn is the shit.
Mandy.
Nope.
Marilyn.
Nope.
Brittany.
Nope.
Tiffany.
Nope.
Candace.
Nope.
Don't fuck with me on this. I know this shit.
Do you see me fucking with you? I'm not.
All right, speed round. I'm going to rattle off some names, and when I hit
You
it,
do
fucking
it.
buzz it, okay?
I will tell you.
You got me?
Yeah.
All right, Brandy, Heather, Channing, Brianna, Amber, Sabrina, Melody, Dakota, Sierra, Bambi, Crystal, Samantha, Autumn, Ruby, Taylor, Tara, Tammy, Lauren, Charlene, Chantel, Courtney, Misty, Jenny, Krista, Mindy, Noelle, Shelby, Trina, Reba, Cassandra, Nikki, Kelsey, Shauna, Jolene, Erling, Claudine, Savannah, Casey, Dolly, Kendra, Kylie, Chloe, Devin, Emily, fucking Becky?
Nope.
Wait, was it any one of those names with a Lynn after it?
Yes.
Oh, I got you, motherfucker. I got you. Okay. Brandy Lynn, Heather Lynn,
Tammy Lynn.
Fuck!
Okay, so Ted is my number 8, and that takes us to Barry and his number 7.
All right, so my number 7, I had to say, I mentioned at the top of the podcast that I'm kind of flying solo this week, so my wife called me before we started the show, and she was like, well, what do you have on your list? So I was kind of going through them. When I got to my number 7, she was like, don't talk about that movie because then no one will take you serious.
Well, Amanda already talked about Tammy.
I felt
bro?
safe, right? I was like, well, I know Amanda's going to have something on her list, so I'll feel okay.
Amanda's was going to be total shite. So
but Hot Tub Time Machine comes in for me at number 7. I just really think this movie is very funny. I think the ensemble cast is fantastic. John Cusack, he's been making good, funny movies since the 80s, and he doesn't really get a lot of credit for his comedic ability. Rob Corddry is very funny. Craig Robinson is fantastic. And, the premise is obviously completely ridiculous, but, being a child of the 80s, anything that takes place in that decade, I have a more kinsmanship to, it just kind of pulls me in. So when they kind of travel back and everything is like 1986, which, I loved it. I thought it was so funny. I mean, again, a little crass, which is a little vulgar, but I really enjoyed this movie. So
this movie was better than I thought it was going to be going into it. Have you seen the sequel, Barry?
I've not seen the sequel. I have not.
I haven't either yet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I didn't need one. Comedy sequels, they rarely are as good as the original. So, and surprised by Hot Tub Time Machine, I feel like there's no way they can surprise me.
I feel like that's why I'm not watching it either. I'm
Yeah.
like, it surprised me once. You're not going to surprise me twice. But no, decent pick there. I like that. Amanda, I love it when it gets to your turn every time. So, what is your number 7?
This is The End, is my number 7 from 2013. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to talk about it, because I had mine way higher than you guys did, so in your face. I love the cast. I love how outrageous they were. Michael Cera is so ridiculous, but it's so funny to see them in these roles and make fun of themselves a little bit. And Hermione popping up, who doesn't love little Hermione action outside of, Harry Potter? She took a little time from her spell books and decided that she would not get raped in the apocalypse. So
good to know.
Right? She's used to eating shitty food anyway. Let's just give her all the shitty food that we don't want.
That's fucked up. Look how tiny she is. She's not even a full 7. She's like half a 7.
I mean, this is a fucking cool thing, man. I, for one, am very excited. I'm a massive Harry Potter fan.
What?
Yes, I love fucking Harry Potter. I cannot wait till she wakes up and I can ask her all these amazing questions about how they made those motion pictures.
Take it easy, Dumbledore. Guys, listen. I think we need to address the elephant in the room.
Whoa, Jay, don't talk about Craig. That's fucked up. I'm right here, man.
Yeah, I'm not calling Craig an elephant.
Yeah.
That's
Wow,
fucking
is that
weird.
mean?
Yeah, no, that's racist. I wasn't referring to him. I was referring to the issue that's on all of our minds. What? This is one girl in a house with 6 males. Yeah. Really safe.
Ideal scenario. She's like a little sister.
I think that it's important that she feels safe and comfortable, and we should be mindful.
Who's making her not feel safe?
Well, I'm just saying we don't want to give off A bad vibe.
Vibes?
I ain't giving no vibes.
Yeah, wait, what kind of vibes are you talking about, man? He's talking about us giving off a rapey vibe.
Hey, whoa! What? Jay, what the fuck, man?
Chill out.
I ain't putting that shit in the mix.
Yeah,
man. He fucking said it.
You're the one saying it. No one here is thinking about raping anyone.
Wow, you talking about vibes is the only thing that's rapey going on right now.
Dude, nothing was rapey till you brought up the rapey
The
vibes.
one who smelt it dealt it, dog.
True that, dude.
One who denies it supplies it. I know, it's farts, I get it. Guys. Jay's not rapey. Jay couldn't rape a fly.
He probably could. Maybe we should just stop this entire conversation right now.
If anyone's gonna rape anyone here, it's probably gonna be Danny.
What the fuck, Franco?
What?
Why do you think I'm gonna rape somebody?
I'm just trying to lay it out there.
I'm not gonna rape anyone, all right? If anyone's gonna rape somebody...
That's my number 7.
All right.
Good goal.
Dan.
Good life goal.
It's mine. It's currently my life goal.
Gotta start someplace. My number 7 is probably a movie that people actually have heard of, so I got that going for me. And it is, I think, a comedy that is criminally untalked about. I feel like it came and went, and I'm not sure why. Maybe some people don't like it, but and that's The Other Guys, directed by Adam McKay and Will Ferrell. And again, I guess the theme going today is Mark Wahlberg, because he's also in this. And I think Adam McKay and Will Ferrell work the best when they're together, and I think this is proof of it. I thought it works well as a good action comedy, and there's some funny elements like The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson as like the pseudo like over-the-top action stars and what happens to them. But again, I think Ferrell and Wahlberg have really good comedy. There's some really great quotes with the infamous line about him being a tuna. I think that's probably the most popular line from it.
You know what I just did? I just walked out that door, saw a couple detectives, and I was about to start bad-mouthing you behind your back. But I stopped myself because my pops taught me that a man who talks behind somebody's back is a coward.
Wow, I actually appreciate that.
Good, because I'm going to tell you directly to your face.
No, you don't have to.
No, I don't like you. I think you're a fake cop. The sound of your piss hitting the urinal, it sounds feminine. If we were in the wild, I would attack you. Even if you weren't in my food chain, I would go out of my way to attack you. If I were a lion and you were a tuna, I would swim out in the middle of the ocean and freaking eat you. And then I'd bang your tuna girlfriend.
Okay, first off, a lion swimming in the ocean? Lions don't like water. If you'd placed it near a river or some sort of fresh water source, that makes sense. But you find yourself in the ocean, 20-foot waves, I'm assuming it's off the coast of South Africa, coming up against a full-grown 800-pound tuna with his 20 or 30 friends, you lose that battle. You lose that battle 9 times out of 10. And guess what? You've wandered into our school of tuna, and we now have a taste of lion. We've talked to ourselves. We've communicated and said, you know what? Lion tastes good. Let's go get some more lion. We've developed a system to establish a beachhead and aggressively hunt you and your family. And we will corner your pride, your children, your offspring.
How are you going to do that?
We will construct a series of breathing apparatus with kelp. We will be able to trap certain amounts of oxygen. It's not going to be days at a time, but an hour, hour 45, no problem. That will give us enough time to figure out where you live, go back to the sea, get more oxygen, and then stalk you. You just lost your own game. You're outgunned and outmanned. Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.
And 2, also Steve Coogan is in this too. So it's just, I guess, there's 5 comic actors and they're all in these movies. But but I really like The Other Guys. So
yeah, I agree with you about that one not being talked about as enough. But I'm going to do my part to talk about it a little bit later. So so I will get into my number 7, and I guess I figured that these films qualify, but maybe you guys will disagree with me, even though I'm the one that tried to set the rules. Maybe I'm breaking them all. But my number 7 is Moonrise Kingdom from 2012. Amanda is giving me an awful look right now. But I don't know how else to classify any of Wes Anderson's movies outside of them being comedies.
I believe they're in the quirk genre.
So
is that Budapest Hotel?
No, that's a different one.
I'm saying, is that the same guy?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't see that either.
Anyways, obviously I watch these movies alone. But yeah.
This is the shit he watched when he was still a bachelor.
And still wish I could.
Oh, we can arrange it.
Wow.
We can arrange it.
All right.
No, Moonrise Kingdom was probably one of the ones. I mean, I knew who Wes Anderson was and everything, but I think this is the one that kind of really got my attention with his directing. It might be my favorite Wes Anderson film. I don't know if it's necessarily the one I find the funniest, but probably overall, like as a film, it's probably one of my favorite of his. So I love the actors that he has in his like little gang, and seeing the random characters that they play and the weird positions or places they find themselves in. I found this one pretty funny throughout. So Moonrise Kingdom is my number 7.
I thought it was a good return to form for him because he had some like the Darjeeling Unlimited and Steve Azuzu, which were kind of too was almost Wes Anderson becoming too Wes Anderson, but the Moonrise Kingdom kind of got back to what made him good. So I will say I'm not going to talk about that, but other movies might come up later.
All right. Number 6, Barry.
All right, number 6, I will say, is probably the movie that shocked me second most on my list. And it's one that I really don't hear anybody talk about, but I really thought was quite funny. And that's Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
I feel like our lists were copacetic in some ways, but then I took them all off. But yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. This movie, man, like I kind of heard people talk about it, and I was like, that premise sounds just really stupid. But like I was kind of sitting around the house one day, and it was streaming on Netflix, so I was like, I'll give it a shot. I mean, it stars Alan Tudyk. You've probably seen him. He's in like Dodgeball and a few other movies. Tyler Labine, I think he's been in some things. Katrina Bowden, probably most well known from 30 Rock, and James Franco's little brother. And I just, this movie completely shocked me. It's one of those kind of mistaken identity movies. Tucker and Dale are friends, and they buy like a cabin in the woods, and kind of hilarity ensues when they are mistaken for kind of like murderous hillbillies. And I mean, this movie, it's just so funny. And I mean, this kind of genre really doesn't normally work for me. I don't know if it's Tudyk's like charm that kind of really works on screen, or I don't know, Dave Franco looking so much like his brother that I kept trying to figure out like who is that, and it took me forever. I had to look it up. I was like, oh, okay, so he's James Franco's brother. That makes sense. But yeah, I really thought this movie was very, very funny, and I really liked Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So I suggest checking it out. So
can we back up to Murderous Hillbillies?
Yes.
Because that sounds intriguing.
She's over here dying off of the mic.
Murderous Hillbillies.
It's classified as comedy horror, but I definitely think it's comedy first. But it just the stuff that plays out in this movie, that they're kind of seen in compromising position. I mean, because you've seen all the scary movies, right? When people break down in the woods, and like the people come out, and so that's what they're mistaken for. And I mean, they're just two nice guys that actually kind of live in like the suburbs, but they're just out, visiting their cabin. It's just really, really funny movie. I highly suggest checking it out.
This sounds like it's something right up Amanda's alley. This is going to be, I think, the 7th movie I'll have to write down.
Okay, nice.
I actually walked into my cousin's house the other day, and her and her boyfriend were watching this, and he decided to play it on his laptop and sit there with his tablet, and he had his headphones on, and we were trying to watch Woman in Black 2, but he was sitting over there cracking up the entire time watching Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So yeah. I'm definitely going to have to Netflix the crap out of that.
You should definitely give it a go.
All right. Dan, any comments since you said you left it off your list?
It's really good. It's a great deconstruction of the genre of horror, and I think like that and like Cabin in the Woods work really good as if you're looking for a good double bill.
Yeah.
You want to put them back
Very
to back.
similar vein. And it is streaming on Netflix now, so.
Yeah.
All right. Double sponsorship here from the Netflix guys.
The NetTubes.
Amanda, what is your number 6?
Number 6. I think, Kevin, you might like this film a little bit more than I did, but I have 2014's St. Vincent, the Bill Murray joint, and also has Tammy in it, in case you didn't see this. Name. It's Tammy. But Melissa McCarthy did a little bit different take on what she normally does. She's still the sad, frumpy, my husband didn't love me because I'm not beautiful kind of lady.
Well, she can't get away from that.
Well, come on now. Give her a shot. But I think that Bill Murray, always amazing in everything that he does, and I liked the comedy that was in here, but I also got the straight feels quite a few times in this, so it surprised me about how much I enjoyed the film.
This would be one of the ones that I disqualified off of my list. Otherwise, it would have been on there. But I thought some people might say that the drama outweighed the comedy, or that it was more close maybe to a 50-50 split. So I ended up disqualifying it. Otherwise, it would have been on my list.
Hater.
I'm sorry. All right, Dan, number 6.
This might be the one that some people. It might be my Tammy choice, I guess. I don't know. How do you see it? But
no, none of us can have that. We're all safe.
And it is Cedar Rapids, starring Ed Helms and John C. Reilly and Hayes, a few other people. Ed Helms is this insurance agent that kind of goes on this like generic vacation to Cedar Rapids, but for him it's like the best thing ever because he's been such a humdrum life, and it just I love comedies that can take like average everyday people and make them funny, kind of like The Office, but in movie form, fittingly starting at Helms. And it's got a great cast. John C. Reilly is great in everything he does, but I think the guy that probably really steals the entire film is Isaiah Whitlock Jr., who, if you're a fan of The Wire, you've seen him, and he's the shit guy. If you've seen The Wire, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But
Do that again?
I can't. It's only once a night. Shit. But I thought it was a great kind of a slice of life type of movie, and I'm a big Ed Helms fan. He's not all the movie choices he makes are great, but I end up really liking Cedar Rapids.
So I've seen more films in like the last 5 years than I ever have in my life, and apparently none of them were comedies. So I apparently need to watch more comedies on a yearly basis. I'm skewing way towards the drama end, I guess. I have not seen that one either, so I'm just sounding ignorant to this whole list. My number 6, though, has been talked about by multiple people, so I won't go in detail too much, and that would be This Is the End. So I'm in agreement with Barry and Amanda. Just have it slightly higher, but I thought This Is the End was one of the more surprising ones. I did not go into that one expecting too much, and I enjoyed it throughout, and some crazy stuff happening, but like I said, I like the fact that they were all kind of playing themselves somewhat, and way better than I thought it was going to be, so it was good enough to make my number 6. We are going to take a quick break to get a couple commercials in there and let us regroup, but we'll be right back after the break with our top 5 comedies of the first half of this decade.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing. Car.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
Hey guys, it's Optimus Solo and
Hard Candy Mandy.
And we just wanted to let you guys know about another podcast out there that we both think you would all enjoy.
It's one of both of our favorite shows to listen to, and it's none other than the Tru Bromance podcast.
Tru Bromance is a movie podcast hosted by longtime friends Hyro and Barry, and if you like to smile, laugh, and just be genuinely entertained while listening to movie talk, then this is definitely the right show for you.
Each week, the guys break down a recently released movie, and not only do they tie in the movie that week to the beers that they are drinking during the show,
but they also tie it in to a real fun top and bottom 5 list associated with that movie.
It's a blast hearing both sides of these lists, and it definitely makes them unique amongst all other movie review podcasts.
So we definitely want to recommend all of you guys to go check out their show. Just search out the Tru Bromance podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and all other podcast platforms. And if you listen via iTunes, do us a favor and leave them a 5-star review. And don't forget to let them know that the Cinema Geeks sent you. All right, we're back here on Cinema Geeks, counting down the top 10 comedy films of the decade so far. And during the break, our listeners weighed in and they ranked our list so far. So we're actually going to go in reverse order. So the one that they thought has the worst list so far will go first this round, and the one that they had the best list will round things out. So Amanda, you are starting with number 5.
Stop it. My number 5 comes from 2012. This may be worse than Tammy, depending on
Identity Thief.
Identity Thief. Dark Shadows.
Yeah, you're right.
With Michelle Pfeiffer, Johnny Depp, Ava Green. I had so much fun with this movie. I don't care how dumb anybody says it was. It was hilarious. I bought this movie. I'll rewatch this movie. I love vampires, and this was a total vampire spoof.
I don't even know what this is. I don't know what we're talking about.
Dark Shadows?
Yeah.
Johnny Depp made a movie based on a TV show, or was a radio show? A TV show from way back in the day, the Disney, which was a Wednesday, by the way, and it's where it's set in the 70s, a vampire in the 70s. Okay?
I'm not on board.
You wrapping your mind around this?
It's also directed by Tim Burton, so you got that.
Oh, I'm definitely not on board on this.
Helena Bonham Carter, isn't it? Naturally.
All right.
So
you started your first half of the list with Tammy, and you're starting the second half with Dark Shadows.
Breaking it down.
So is it funny, like in the way like The Room is funny, where it's just like...
Sorry. The Room is hysterical. Oh, goodness. Matt, our former co-host on when it was called Weekend at the Movies, he's actually read or listened to the audiobook from the co-star of The Room on the behind the scenes and everything that went into that film. So he is an expert, and he's told some great stories about that. But
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, that's good. Lucky as it is, I get to go next because I have the second worst list so far. So my number 5, I'm going back to Wes Anderson, and I will go with Grand Budapest Hotel from last year. I think I probably like Moonrise Kingdom a little bit more as an overall film, but I thought Grand Budapest Hotel probably had a little bit more comedic presence than Moonrise Kingdom, for me at least. So that's why I have it at number 5, and I thought the only way I was going to come up with 10 was to try to stick as many Wes Anderson films in here as possible. So
he's got a couple short films you can throw on there if you really want.
Barry, what is your number 5?
My number 5 has actually already been talked about, and I agree that The Other Guys is an underrated comedy. I think this movie is very funny. I think Mark Wahlberg has been said before on the show so far today. I think his comedy is underrated. I think he can be quite humorous. I actually use the line at work sometimes when I get frustrated that I'm a peacock. You got to let me fly.
211 in progress. They're using a wrecking ball to clean out Cassidy and jewelry.
We got it.
Good luck, guys. Have a good one.
Alan, let's go.
No, I got work to do.
What? This is work.
Hey, yo. Dancing in Highsmith. We rolling heavy. Cream puffs. Sit tight.
You gotta be shitting me. You can't keep me cooped up in here, okay? I am a peacock. You gotta let me fly.
Did he just call himself a peacock?
Who doesn't use that line?
Yeah, I mean it's great stuff. You know, I really like the interaction that Mark Wahlberg's rage that Will Ferrell's married to gosh, what's her name? I'm drawing a blank. Eva Mendes. Yeah, he's just he's irate to his face. Like, how is this possible? Like, he just questions it the whole time. It's just so funny. I really like The Other Guys, and it's probably not as good as some of other Will Ferrell's buddy movies, but since those kind of fell outside the window, I could not use those. Right. But I think this one is definitely worth mentioning. That's why it comes in here for me at number 5.
Dangerous bitches better be using Jimmy's.
Yeah.
I think every time Mark Wahlberg is offered something like Transformers, there should be like a Kickstarter to get him to do a comedy.
Yeah,
instead.
he's very, very funny. So.
All right, Dan, that means you're up last with your number 5 pick.
All right, my number 5. Well, we talked about movies about the world ending, and I don't have This Is the End, but I have The World's End, directed by the third film in the Carlittle trilogy, or whatever you say it. But I know a lot of people don't put this along the same lines as Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, and I agree it's not as good. But I still think it's enjoyable. I feel like what you get a lot with Edgar Wright movies. It gets better on the rewatch, and I know the first time I watched it, I thought it was okay, but I've really appreciated it because I've watched it many times when it's been replayed on HBO, and I just noticed how many jokes are put in there that are you'll get on a second go around, because a lot of Edgar Wright's jokes are very character based, and they're in the sense of characters are making jokes based upon knowledge you don't have yet. But once you have that knowledge, you go back and rewatch it, things become a little bit funnier, and I think it fills out those characters a little bit more. And it makes it feel like real life, because you think about it, when you make jokes with people, you're making jokes upon everything, not just things that have happened based upon the film. So, and I just think, too, it doesn't live in genre nearly as much as Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead. It doesn't really do as much with science fiction, but I thought like the comedy itself has more weight to it because it deals with some more serious issues, and it's, I think, to me, Simon Pegg's best performance. And I don't know, it just has that Edgar Wright flavor that I like, and if you don't like it, I can get that, but I enjoy it. It's my number 5.
This whole trilogy is on my list of shame, so I will add all 3 of them to my ever-growing list.
This is the only one I've not seen from this trilogy. So,
did you like the other 2, Barry?
I did. I mean, I liked Hot Fuzz quite a bit, and Shaun of the Dead also. You know, I mean, they're definitely kind of spoofing of those particular genres, but I like them quite a bit. So I really like Simon Pegg. I think he's, you know, he works in a lot of things. So I like those 2 movies.
All right, Amanda?
I'm in agreement with those 2 movies being pretty awesome. I really dig Simon Pegg. What's the big guy that's always with him? Yes, he is hilarious too. Them together, always a good time, and definitely 2 very quotable and memorable movies. I don't think I've seen Dan's pick though.
All right, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is going to be a 2013 film, The Family, with Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert De Niro.
Was Michelle Pfeiffer in the one you just said a second ago?
Yes.
You have 2 Michelle Pfeiffer comedies on your list from 2010 to 2014.
She is also my number 2 best female comedic performance on my list.
I don't understand what's happening. Yes, I'm so confused. I thought we were doing... Is this like ironic comedy? I don't understand. Oh, man.
I
haven't seen this
movie. I thought it was so much fun. Oh, God, shut up.
Defend yourself. Come
on. What can you not like about this movie? I mean, it's a mob comedy movie. I love mob movies. I like comedies. Put them together with Michelle Pfeiffer and Robert De Niro, I'm probably gonna dig it. There's gratuitous gun violence. There's people getting beat up with tennis rackets. Michelle Pfeiffer blowing up snooty French grocery stores that don't carry peanut butter. Anything.
See, there it is, right there. Is that the case?
It all makes sense now.
I've not seen The Family. I just saw the previews, and
It's on the net tubes. Check it out.
All right.
Barry, you've seen that.
I have seen it. I chuckled a few times. I'm not going to say it's completely laugh-free, but in the end, it just did not work for me. But like I said, comedy is subjective, so I
grew up wanting to be in the mob, and
you're a very violent person.
So you model yourself after Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Maybe the daughter at first.
Okay.
Then she gets kind of crazy.
That storyline really bothered me. How she kind of makes that kind of crazy turn. That was I didn't like that entrapment, but other than that, it was okay.
At first, I was like, "Yeah, this bitch is awesome," and then I was like, "Whoa, she needs help." So I probably would identify with Michelle Pfeiffer a little bit more because I would totally put some mob action craziness down on some snooty French people if I had to.
All right, I thought she was going to say me, so
yeah,
we're safe.
Too.
I'm not French. All right, for my number 4, I am going to a 2011 film, and that would be the reboot attempt that they did there with The Muppets. I really enjoyed the first one. I can say I was a little disappointed with whatever it was, Muppets Most Wanted. I don't think that was nearly as good, but the Muppets that came out in 2011, I thought did a real good job of both kind of blending the old school things that you know about the Muppets, all the cameos, etc., but still making something that was enjoyable. And if you just tacked on like the sequel song from Muppets Most Wanted to as an end credit scene to the Muppets, then you wouldn't even need to watch the second one, and then the first one would be even that much better because that song was pretty cool. But I'm going with 2011's The Muppets at my number 4 pick. I don't know if everybody would consider that comedy, but for me it is.
I think it falls in family comedy, so I would say it definitely, Muppets are always a good time,
Yeah.
And everybody can see how much I'm stretching for every pick on the list. All right, Barry, what's your number 4?
All right, my number 4 has also already been mentioned, but this movie was probably my biggest shock for me when I finally got around to seeing it, and that was 21 Jump Street.
Y'all shut the hell up. I'm trying to study.
Look at him. He's trying. He's actually trying. What a nerd. Look at the nerd. What a nerd. Look at him. Look at the nerd.
Who you calling a nerd, man?
I'm sorry, what?
Oh! Shit, dude. Hey, are you okay, man? Hey, what the hell? Are you serious?
I'll turn that gay-ass music off.
You punch me because I'm gay?
What? No, Oh, come on.
That's not cool, man. That is really insensitive.
I didn't punch him because he's gay. I punched him, and then he's happened to turn out to be gay afterward.
I am one more black gay kid getting punched in the face away from a nervous breakdown.
A narc, are you?
Whoa! Whoa, no.
Dude, come on.
Maybe you're a narc.
You know who calls people narcs? Narc.
First of all, your argument kind of just collapsed on itself, because if you would call us narcs, if narcs call people narcs, and you call us narcs, then that's kind of all each other narcs. They call your grandma's vagina, and there's a dick going into it.
What the fuck? No, I'm just trying. What are you doing? Are you trying to find my G-spot? Just stick it in.
I don't know. I've never done this before.
Stick it in. Go.
I don't like that. Put your tongue back in your mouth. Put your tongue in your mouth and close it. What are you doing? Stop it.
One particle of unobtainium has a nuclear reaction with a flux capacitor. Carry the two, changing its atomic isotoner into a radioactive spider. Fuck you, science.
Prior to watching this movie, I did not like Channing Tatum. He bothered me completely. And, I had kind of avoided this movie at all costs. And an actual coworker of mine was like, no, you really got to check it out. It's much better than you think. So I came home, and it was like it was just like on HBO that weekend or something. So I gave it a chance, and man, I think at the end, there were certain points in this movie I was literally crying. Like, I was laughing so hard. The meta aspects that are kind of covered in the beginning, I think that was one of the first versions of that we see, and I think it was kind of mocking the aspect of it instead of things that we've seen with more recent movies that are trying to be meta. It's like, well, we know this is bad, but we're going to do it anyways. I think this was kind of like, they gave us money to make a sequel, and we think it's dumb too. So I don't know. It just worked better for me in this movie. And then after seeing this, I'm now a big fan of Channing Tatum. After this, I went and saw Magic Mike and Magic Mike XXL, and now he's my boy. So I will see him in just about anything. I thought this movie was just so funny. I didn't like the second one as much. So it kind of left off my list, and I didn't want to kind of double them up together.
Right. Like I did.
Like some people cheated with, but
every show has its cheater.
Every show has a cheater, but I mean, it is still funny, but it just doesn't quite work as well for me. So that's where I got number 4, 21 Jump Street.
I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead and give my number 3 pick, since it's 21 Jump Street.
My
number
as well. 4 is also 21 Jump Street.
Oh,
I would just say ditto, and it's pretty much
I just wanted to say that, you said that This Is the End had one of the best cameos. I would say 21 Jump Street also had one of the best cameos, because I wasn't expecting the cameo at the end, nor the way that they went out in that film. So I thought that was super clever, and I'm glad that those guys agreed to appear in the film. But I'm with what everybody has already said. I think 21 Jump Street was far better than I thought it was going to be, and I think made a lot of people believers in Channing Tatum. So
I was already on the Channing train.
Only when his shirt was off, though.
I can always get the shirt off pretty easily.
All right,
so.
That's going in a direction we want to. All right, so we're all choosing to spend one of our selections on 21 Jump Street, which I believe then means it's back to Amanda for her number 3 pick.
All right, I'm going to bring it into 2013 again, and my pick is We're the Millers.
Barry's just laughing at. I'm just waiting so I can hear Barry laugh at every one of
I actually like this one. I thought this one was this one has some good funny moments. This one's not as shameful.
I agree. What do you like best about this one, Amanda?
When the kids singing TLC in the when the waterfalls are is legit.
How about a little victory music, huh? Oh, no.
Don't change it. I love this song.
Me too. What? I didn't even like this song when it was popular.
Come on, listen up, David.
Don't do this.
This isn't even a good victory song.
No, stop. I'm not doing this. This is embarrassing.
Come on. I seen a rainbow yesterday, but too many storms have come and gone, leaving a trace of not what God given me. Is it because my life in 10 shades of gray? I pray off and fade away, seldom praising for the sunny day. You claim the insane, a nameless place in time for fall and pray to crime. I swear the system got you baked into your own mind. Dreams are hopeless aspirations in hopes of coming true. Believe in yourself, the rest is up to me, and don't go chasing waterfalls.
There's so much to like. And Jennifer Aniston is pretty. I don't know. Her like sexy dance thing wasn't really that sexy. Little lame. I think that them as a unit made it funny. I don't remember the girl that much though. Just the boy that they looped in as their play-to-be son or whatever. But I had a good time with this. I think it was an LOL for real movie.
I'm sorry, what?
And a laugh out loud for real.
Oh,
okay.
Gotcha. I'm old.
An LOL for real movie. So I had fun with it, and I don't care if you're going to laugh at me, Barry.
I'm with Barry. I thought this was better than I thought it was going to be too. I thought it had more funny moments than I expected, and I think you're right though. It does work because of the ensemble there, and the group, and just kind of the whole journey they're going on. So I mean, it's not on my list, but I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
It probably would have been like maybe an outside honorable mention for me.
Yeah, I think this movie shows Jason Sudeikis can carry something on his own, so he needs to get more projects, I think. So.
Yeah. I already spent my number 3 with 21 Jump Street. So Barry, what is yours?
All right, so my number 3 is my most recent movie, and it actually was released last year. Almost made my top 10 of the list. It was probably my top 15, and that is Bad Words. So Jason Bateman making another appearance on my top 10 list.
This was one of my honorable mentions as well.
Oh man, this movie, this is kind of comedy I really like. That kind of biting dialogue, you know. I mean, I like to think of myself as being a very sarcastic person, and you know, and I think hateful comments are funny. Maybe I shouldn't, but I really like them, and so this movie just really works for me. There's a couple of the sex scenes in this movie. I mean, you know, movies try to make sex funny a lot of times, and it's usually, you know, people like fall off the bed, and it's kind of this like silly slapstick, but the way they do it in this movie, it just kind of it's within the theme of the movie, so it's a little mean-spirited. Some of the conversations that happen during a couple sex scenes with Catherine Hahn, so funny. I really liked it. There's a slight turn at the end of the movie that I didn't kind of like, so that's what kept it off my top 10 list last year. And the same thing that kind of makes it not a perfect movie, but it's really good. But man, for about 90 minutes, so no, it's a 90-minute movie, but for about an hour and 10, 15 minutes. This movie is just hilarious. Jason Bateman is crushing it, and I really enjoyed it.
Anytime you have a movie that sets up opportunities for someone to just completely rail on some type of stereotypical person that everybody else absolutely hates or despises, or at least people with intelligence do, it makes for some fun.
Yeah.
I liked seeing him kind of rip a couple of those people apart.
Yeah.
So
I think it also showed that Jason Bateman, because I think he directed it as well, is actually a pretty good director. So I thought he is good, a good sense, and I think it ended up looking pretty good too, as just on a film standpoint. So I agree. I like Bad Words. It's a good flick.
All right, Dan, what's your next one?
My next one is maybe again a movie that I like more than I should. I like Barry. You mentioned movies with heavy dialogue or mean-spirited comedies, and I like comedies that are very much subversive and kind of satirical, but satire with a bite to it, and that says something and maybe approaches some taboo topics. And you don't get much more taboo than a movie that's about British jihadists, and that's the movie Four Lions. Not sure if you guys have heard of this. But it follows these four different jihadists who are living in England, which does not sound like a comedy, but they're kind of, let's say, not the most capable, and it follows their exploits, and it has silliness to it. There's like a one gag where they're trying to avoid having photographs when they go outside. So what they do is when they walk out, they move their faces back and forth really fast, so the pictures will be blurry, so they can't actually get a full image. And it's just ridiculous. But there's a lot to it like that, and it is a little bit. There's slapstick moments, but I think it's actually has some interesting things to say, and it's really absurd. And I kind of like movies and TV shows that do that look at something that a lot of people are afraid to talk about and go after it in a funny way. So that's why I picked Four Lions.
All right, another one to add to the list. Thanks, Dan, for making
it was streaming forever. This one is actually no longer streaming. I
missed my chance.
Yeah. But now
I actually saw a meme the other day that reminds me of this. There was a meme of a picture of this teenage girl in a burqa. I don't know what you want to call it. I'm not really too versed on their clothing options for women. But
keep digging yourself that hole. Keep going.
I'm okay with that. And the wordage on there was when your dad comes home from a suicide bombing and the chick is just sitting there looking all confused. Do you get it? Anybody getting it? It's a suicide bombing when he came home. Come on now.
I'm too old for this joke, I think.
I'm too old for this joke.
What?
I've clearly shown that I don't know what comedy is, so I can't laugh at anything.
I think if I saw the visual, maybe I would understand.
All right, you have 2 gems left on your list, Amanda. What is your first of those 2 gems?
I don't even want to say anymore.
she's leaving the podcast.
I need another drink. My number 2 pick is also from 2013, and it's The Heat.
Oh my God!
With Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock.
I am leaving the podcast.
I love this movie. It's so funny.
Have you seen Hot Pursuit yet? Because you'll probably love that too.
I have not.
Oh, it's the same film.
No.
This came first, okay? And I don't care who you are. This is funny. I love Sandy B. I feel like she can do no wrong. I don't care what Jesse James thinks of her. But this just feels like something I want to be a part of. I just wanted to be in the bar with them, in the bar scene where just all these crazy shenanigans happen, and I feel like they should be my besties.
I'm thinking ahead and looking forward to you recapping your 10 through 1.
I don't actually. I don't hate The Heat. I like The Heat. I think it's a harmless movie.
Harmless.
In the sense, it's not. It's enjoyable. It's. I think.
If Identity Thief is your number 1, I'm unplugging my microphone.
I think Dan just gave me a verbal pity pat on the head.
That was my intention. I laughed at it. I laughed at The Heat. It's got Bill Burr in it, so you got points for me.
Yes, Bill Burr.
Barry, any thoughts on The Heat?
I don't know. I mean, at this point, I'm in just between the wings and the shock of Amanda's list. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. My heart might stop, but I agree. I mean, I chuckled a few times at The Heat, but I'm not a Sandy B fan. I disagree. Wrong. So I'll stop there because I don't want to enrage Amanda before she comes.
Have you seen Miss Congeniality 2?
I have seen 1 and 2, and I love them both.
Too bad they're not this decade.
I saw Speed 1 and 2.
I can't wait to hear how Barry introduces Amanda on the Tru Bromance episode next week.
Did you like my new category for you, Barry?
Oh.
Proof that you can make a husband out of a man whore.
There you go. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
That's Barry.
Moving right along. My number 2 is already been talked about by a couple people. So in both times they said this film is not talked about enough. So I'm trying to right that wrong. My number 2 is The Other Guys from 2010. It's already been talked about in depth here, but I'll just echo everything they've said. And this was hilarious. They had a lot of one-liners or dialogue moments that people quoted or just kind of stick with you. And spoiler alert for The Other Guys, but just the way that they introduce those, The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, and then immediately do away with them was just something that kind of caught me off guard when I was watching it. I was like, "Are we what?"
Their ending is hilarious.
I was like, "Did that just happen?"
Aim for the bushes.
Yeah.
So that happens fairly early on, and that just sets the tone for the whole film. I enjoyed it a lot. This is easily for me one of the best comedies of the decade so far. So that's my number 2.
Nice,
Barry.
All right, so I'm my number 2 is a movie that no one said yet, so I'm a little nervous. I don't know, but for me, this movie was just it was very funny, and it has Emma Stone in it, so that you're already deep into my heart, and that's Easy A. This is from 2010, so it just barely makes the cutoff. You could maybe consider this kind of a romance comedy, but she's a high school student who kind of lies about promiscuous activity kind of to get ahead, and I don't know. I just really thought this movie was very funny. I thought Emma Stone was great in it. Stanley Tucci's in it. He's fantastic. Amanda Bynes before she went completely batshit crazy.
That's what we do.
Dyed her hair one too many times, and that was all she wrote. But no, I really, really like Easy A. It just works for me. Emma Stone is, I think, very good at delivering dialogue, and this is kind of a dialogue-heavy movie. And it just works for me because it's, I don't want to say it's a coming of age, but it is a high school movie. So anytime you're developing and growing, you can kind of say it's at least part of that. So it works for me in that sense too. And I really liked it. I was kind of actually shocked at how much I liked this. This was one of my first introductions to Emma Stone, and I've seen almost everything she's done since then. So she's on my list. I really admire her. So.
And Easy A will be on my list because it's just another comedy I haven't seen.
Oh yeah,
I'm surprised you dig it.
Terrible podcaster.
Easy A, it's not on my list, but it's quite good. It was on and off, but I ended up barely making it. But I agree, it's quite good. Emma Stone's like big coming out party. She was in Superbad, but I think this was like her first starring vehicle, and she was great in it. And Stanley Tucci and Patricia Clarkson, like play her parents, and they're hilarious. So
yeah, great parents, perfect parents.
So it's a great film, and it's good and Kevin, I think you'll like it because it's very much like you commenting on the old coming of age film, especially John Hughes stuff. So it's quite good.
Excellent. Dan, that leaves it for you for number 2 before we get to all of our number 1s.
My number 2 is a movie that was apparently oversold to Barry, so hopefully I'm not overselling it now, and one that's been talked about, and is The Trip. And doing this list, I realized I'm more of a Steve Coogan fan than I even knew myself. And it's a very simple movie in the sense that it's just Steve Coogan and Rob Brydon driving around England and eating at restaurants and doing impressions. And I agree with Barry when it says like impressions by themselves aren't necessarily funny, but what I find interesting with what they're doing is that how there's this ongoing ego career contest that's going between Brydon and Coogan, who basically play themselves and their names, and it's very much commenting on their careers and whatnot, and how Coogan just always tries to just one-up him in some ways. There's an iconic scene, I don't know if iconic might be a strong word, but of their different impression officers. Oh, I forget who they do.
They're dueling Michael Caine.
Yeah, the dueling Michael Caine is probably the most notable scene of the film, but I think there's more than that too. And like I said, I think it's not for everyone. You may even argue that it's a dramedy because there is some drama there because Coogan has some family things going on as well. But I dug it. It was I like sometimes it's a simple comedy that doesn't really rely on plot. It's just based on character, and that's what The Trip was for me.
I will give you my thoughts on The Trip next episode on Cinema Geeks, since that was our homework for this next episode.
I'm probably overselling it, so it's the worst thing ever to do is go in a comedy with expectations because they're barely ever going to match those. So
don't let me soil you. Like I said, I just impressions to me like bother me. Like when you see God, who's the fat guy that's always on ESPN that does those?
Frank Caliendo.
I yell at the radio and the TV. I'm like, he's not funny. And just over and over every time he's on TV. Like I just want to break things. Like doing Chris Berman's right there. I don't need to hear someone else do Chris Berman. You fat pig. Knock it off. I'm sorry. I'm ranting on your
I hate him too. Actually, sometimes not all the time. Every once in a while he's funny, but every Sunday having to deal with him, give me his football picks is annoying. All right. Drum roll, Amanda. Your number 1 comedy so far of the decade. Is there any left?
Going in line with the theme of the heat, I'm going to bring it back to 2010, a movie that's been beat to death on this particular episode, and that's The Other Guys is my number 1 film.
She redeems herself.
I think it's maybe. I think it's the most rememberable, most quotable.
Did you say rememberable?
Rememberable?
Okay. Is
that a word?
No.
It is now? I think that, like I said, it's the most quotable movie. I don't know anybody who hasn't seen this movie. If they do, I'm going to drag them somewhere to make them sit through the duration of this awesomeness. I'm going to get the duct tape out, the whole 9, bungee cords, and they're going to watch this. I think it definitely set the standard for Mark Wahlberg's comedy entrance, and was he in anything funny before that? Because if he was, I don't remember. I remember Marky Mark in Fear.
He's always been funny.
And Four Brothers. But I think he's hilarious, and him and Will Ferrell do a great odd couple, and there's just a ton about this that we've already talked about that I love. Definitely the Sam Jackson and The Rock's character. Even one of the Wayans brothers? He's in this? One of the
probably it's a movie, so it's probably going to have his brother.
One of the Wayans. It's got one of the Wayans in it, and there's a ton of
Wayans.
Jim Wayans. It's got a ton of really funny side characters too, and I think as a whole, this is the best comedy of the last half decade.
Well, I think it's one of the only ones that has made everybody's list.
Yeah,
so I
that's
guess
pretty solid evidence right there for sure. So. Yeah.
All right.
Amanda, if you want a early Mark Wahlberg comedy, you could watch The Big Hit from 1998. It might be a little dated now, but I really liked this movie when I first saw it back in the 90s. I thought it was hilarious.
There you go.
What is it,
The Big Hit? Yeah, he plays a hitman. Him and
so there you go. You got the
Sabato
family
Jr., Lou Diamond Phillips. It's pretty funny.
I always also wanted to be a
There
hitman
you
while
go.
growing up, so I just wanted something that I could carry a gun and wear pinstripes.
You just wanted to inflict violence on people. That's what
I'm
it really
sleeping
is.
in a bulletproof vest tonight.
Why you play hockey? The violence, the rage is channeled. So
exactly.
I have a client that teases me saying that I beat Kevin with a cast iron frying pan all the time.
I don't know why he says that. Though.
I
That's
don't
never
know.
happened.
Not yet.
All right, stuff to look forward to. My number one has also not been mentioned yet, and I am either way off base here, and I'm the only one that thinks this movie is hilarious, or I don't know, maybe people aren't considering it a comedy. But my number one is from 2011. I started with Steve Carell. I will end with Steve Carell, and that would be Crazy Stupid Love from 2011. I thought, Barry, you were going to steal this because you said Emma Stone with your number two. But Emma Stone, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, just for the whole scene of Gosling remaking Steve Carell and going through the wardrobe and everything else. And I laughed a lot in this film. Maybe not as straight a comedy as some of the other people or movies that have been listed so far, but my number one is Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah, I like the movie a lot. I wasn't sure if it felt in that like dramedy thing for me, so that's why I didn't include it.
Dang it, Dan! All my picks are invalid.
It was very borderline, but I don't know. I think you can make the argument.
All right. Well, I'm making the argument because I don't have any other movies I thought were funny. So, Crazy Stupid Love is my number one. Barry, what's yours?
All right. Well, my number one, I think, has three components you need to make an almost perfect movie. A shirtless Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, and a great shopping montage. It is also my number one, Crazy Stupid Love.
Thank you.
Not only that, I think this is the funniest movie maybe of the past half decade. I think it's definitely the best movie on my list. I love this. I mean, if I made a list of movies for the past half decade, this would probably be in my top 20 somewhere. I can't rave enough about this movie. I love every second of it. I think Gosling's great. Emma Stone is fantastic. The family dynamics that go on are just so great. It gets a little heavy-handed and sappy near the end.
Right.
But by that point, I don't care. I've enjoyed it so much. I agree. I think it's a comedy with drama. I mean, it definitely has drama in it, but I think it's funny throughout. So that's why I included it on my list. I can't. I mean, I could go on, but I'll stop. I love it.
It also had a twist in there that for an odd thing in a comedy didn't really see coming for me.
Yeah.
With all the relationships and whatnot, and that kind of I remember seeing that the first time and being like, whoa, what?
Yeah,
why didn't I see this coming?
There's a few twists in this movie that I thought were really incredible that kind of left me gasping.
And the fun part about that main twist is you see it and then you're just like you're shocked, but then you're also anticipating getting to watch. However, this is the fallout. What is going to be the fallout from this?
Like, you're so excited what's going to happen next.
Shit's going to hit the fan. But I'm glad you picked it at number one.
Yeah,
I am feeling
fantastic
better
movie.
about my pick now. All right, Dan, end the list here. What is the best comedy of the last 5 years?
Number one. That's it's one that's already been mentioned, but I will mention it. And I think Barry said he feels that his Crazy Stupid Love was the best movie on this list. And I would say for my number one, I feel like everyone I had, all the other films that were on my list I felt were good comedies. This is the only one I feel like is actually a great film, and that's the Grand Budapest Hotel, Wes Anderson's latest film from last year. And I think the number one reason this makes my list and makes number one is Ralph Fiennes and his performance, which is fantastic because he's playing this very high class character, but it's obviously a ruse, and because every so often you see it slip a little bit with, especially like his just ridiculous cursing that happens on occasion, and there's some slapstick comedy in here that works. It's exactly what you expect for Wes Anderson. So. Again, you're not a Wes Anderson fan, you're probably not going to like it, but I just thought it was all from top to bottom a really good movie, felt with a lot of great comedy that I probably laughed at more than anything last year, so that's why it made my number one.
I've not commented on any of the Wes Anderson movies that's been talked about because I have never seen a Wes Anderson film. So, Kevin, you keep talking about being a horrible podcaster. You and I are maybe in the same quasi boat there. I don't think we're the worst because Amanda's over there picking Tammy and the Heat. So I think we're safe. We're number two on that list. But
number two and three.
I'm actually
whatever. Hold on, number one.
I'm actually in the process of watching the Grand Budapest Hotel. I'm about halfway through. It's like on the HBO. So I've kind of been watching it the past couple nights, and I mean it's interesting. I don't think I've laughed out loud yet, but I definitely think it's a decent movie. So.
I think Wes Anderson does benefit if you start from his first film and work your way up because there's a progression to his style. If you, it just I don't know, it's hard to explain, but there's like a Wes Anderson-ness that it kind of ebbs and flows until it reaches probably a bad peak at Darjeeling Unlimited and then kind of gets back with Fantastic Mr. Fox and Moonrise Kingdom. But if you look at like Bottle Rocket, which is his first movie, and then Grand Budapest Hotel, they're very different, but it's kind of cool seeing that progression. I think he's one of those directors that really kind of came into a style like about third or fourth film in. So
okay, yeah, sweet.
All right. Well, let's recap the list for everybody so we can see the entire list in all its glory from each person. So let's start with Amanda. What is your 10 through 1?
I don't want to hear
skip
shit.
Number 10. Skip number 10.
Start with number 9.
22.
Number 10, Tammy. 9 is Ted. Number 8 might cheat with 21 and 22 Jump Street. Number 7, This Is the End. 6, St. Vincent. 5, Dark Shadows. 4, The Family. 3, We're the Millers. 2, The Heat. And number 1, The Other Guys.
Alrighty.
Things like the Titanic slowly going down.
My 10 through 1 is number 10, Date Night. Number 9, The Way, Way Back. Number 8, Ted. Number 7, Moonrise Kingdom. Number 6, This Is the End. Number 5, Grand Budapest Hotel. Number 4, The Muppets. Number 3, 21 Jump Street. Number 2, The Other Guys. And number 1, Crazy Stupid Love. Barry, what's your list?
I had number 10, This Is the End. Number 9, In a World. Number 8, The Change-Up. 7, Hot Tub Time Machine. 6, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. 5, The Other Guys. 4, 21 Jump Street. 3, Bad Words. 2, Easy A. And 1, a great movie, Crazy Stupid Love.
All right, Dan, round it up.
My number 10 was 7, Psychopaths. Number 9, Clown. Number 8, Alan Partridge, Alpha Papa. Next is The Other Guys, and then I had Cedar Rapids, The World's End, 21 Jump Street, 4 Lions. Then number 2, I had The Trip, and last but not least, as number 1, I had The Grand Budapest Hotel.
All right, and as we do when each one of those lists, we usually end with a brief discussion on the topic at hand or the genre at hand. And obviously, like we said at the beginning, comedy is one of those that's really subjective, and that can probably be seen as the differences on all of our list. I think we had 2 films that appeared on everybody's list. That would be The Other Guys and 21 Jump Street. Outside of that, there was no film that appeared on all 4 lists, unless I'm missing one. So that might be a testament to that. But I also wanted to kind of just get an idea of what you guys feel like as far as the decade so far in general, and if it's been a good decade for comedy, or what the state of the genre is in general. And then after that quick discussion, we'll kind of get into some of the personalities, or maybe what this decade will be known for when people look back at this comedy, because I think a lot of times the decades can be somewhat signified by the comedy stars, and we'll kind of go through a little bit of a history of that. But Dan, let's start with you. What do you feel like as far as 2010 through 2014, halfway through, what is this decade shaping up for this genre?
I don't think it's been a great time for comedy, but I'll preface that by saying I think comedy is one of those genres where I think the great ones often aren't appreciated until down the line in some ways. But I just think a lot of the big comedies have been disappointments, and I don't think you get a lot of the there's a lot of generic comedies that are out there that kind of just follow the same patterns, and we mentioned with comedies like sequels are often don't work, and we're getting a lot of those. So I think right now comedy is not at its best point, but I do think there is some potential with maybe we can get into some people I think that might help turn it around.
Barry, agree or disagree? Good decade for comedy so far, or off to a rough start?
Can I say pretty good half decade so far? I mean, I think my list that there's definitely all the movies that I've really laughed at, quite a few when I've seen them. I think one of the biggest problems, and I mean maybe this has been the same thing for all decades, but you get a movie like Horrible Bosses was kind of an honorable mention for me again. Jason Bateman, Jason Sudeikis. I thought that was pretty good, but then they followed up with Horrible Bosses 2, which is just not good. It's not funny, and like they repeat the same jokes, and it's just the same joke told the exact same way a second time is just it's not as funny. And so I also think that when they make these kind of inferior sequels, it takes away from the original a little bit. And the only thing I would have to say is going forward, I'm mixed, because I think there's a lot of funny people in Hollywood. Steve Carell was, both these in our number one movies, Dan, you and I, and you had him on your list a couple of times. But, I think he's a genuinely funny guy, but a lot of his movies aren't good, and I don't know why that is. And, right. Same thing like Tina Fey. I love Tina Fey. I think she's one of the funniest people alive, but like Baby Mama and
Whoa, don't even hate on that movie.
My God, are you kidding?
I love it.
Nightmare of nightmares. That movie is just those two, Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. I think are I used to think I would watch them do anything, and then I watched Baby Mama, and I was like, well, maybe not. And so I don't know. There's a lot of funny people. The next 5 years coming up, I'm optimistic because I'm hopeful like Amy Schumer and some other comedians that have kind of tried to dip their toe into the movie world will continue to go that way, because I think there are truly funny people. But I think we need the PG-13 rating hurts a lot of comedies. They pull a lot of punches to try to get maximum ticket sales, and it neuters movies. I mean it's hard to kind of come in with that. It's hard to make a dick joke when you can't say dick. So it makes it problematic.
And you wouldn't think that would be something that they'd be. Comedy is something that you can do on such a low budget that why not do, shed the rating. You're going to make your budget back most likely anyways, but I think you touched on a couple things. Number one, it has not been a good decade so far for sequels. I mean, I don't know if that's ever a case for any genre, but especially in the comedy genre. And it's not only films that were good on the original film and then are bad on sequels, but they're even making sequels of films that were bad originally, like Grown Ups 2. Like, yeah. I don't kid, you know what I mean? But we also got, in this half decade so far, we've had Hangover Part 3, we've had kind of the reboot, whatever you want to call it, Dumb and Dumber 2.
Oh, God.
Like you said, Hot Tub Time Machine 2. So there's been a lot of unnecessary sequels or, reboots to old comedies, etc. And I think the other thing that you mentioned, kind of getting into the comedians that have been featured in a lot of these films, it seems like there has been a little bit of a gap between people that are genuinely funny people or genuinely funny on TV or SNL or stand-up that have not translated well to movies. You named, obviously, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, but, even like Kevin Hart has not really translated that well to the film world. I think he's a funny person, and I think his stand-up's funny, but he's had a lot of crappy movies. And, you know, Will Ferrell's struggled. There's been a lot of people that are struggling in this half-decade so far. So I'm kind of with Dan here. It doesn't seem like it's been a decent decade so far, but I think he makes a good point that maybe comedy is something that it's unfair to judge in the moment, and we got to kind of take a few, you know, another 5 years before we look back and pass a judgment on these films.
And I think a part of it too with comedy, reason why maybe it's not as strong now. So I think a lot of comedians, instead of getting that movie, they're going to television, like Louis C.K. Like, he's getting more freedom to make a TV show than he ever would probably making an actual film. So I think you're seeing that more often, where comedians are doing that or doing podcasts rather, and they get more of a boost from that than being in just your everyday, like, forgettable comedy. So I think that's kind of hurting it a little bit. And I think the sequel thing, I think that's something that's, like, short-lived, right? Because eventually Ghostbusters 2 didn't really negatively affect Ghostbusters 1 that many years later. I think in the moment it does, but I think eventually people forget there's even a sequel to Fletch.
Right.
So I think
that's true.
Some of those, like, forgettable sequels become exactly that, become forgettable. So then the originals, it's like, you know, Jaws 4 doesn't stop Jaws from being a classic film. Maybe at the time it was hurting it, but decades later, people don't ever talk about that movie.
Hopefully Paul Blart Mall Cop 2 will not ruin the legacy of Amanda's third all-time favorite movie, Paul Blart Mall Cop. So I've
never even seen that. I've never even seen
That's why it's not here. That's right. Okay.
She had that and crossed it off of the list, I think.
It was my number one, but all the mocking, I had to remember.
So she just picked one of the ones that we had already said.
I couldn't take the bullying anymore. I couldn't take the bullying.
Amanda, I'm guessing that you think it has been a strong decade for comedy so far.
I think it has, yes.
Crushing it.
I think that bitch is on top right now.
Yeah.
No, I think it's the opposite.
Ouch.
But I think it has been a funny year. I think that they've stepped up the raunch level, and I think that they're going to continue to do that because that's what people want, and I don't think people are going to be satisfied with anything less than that now. So I think the R rating for comedies is going to go strong. I don't know how well the comedy of this decade can do with the PG-13 rating, like you're saying. I think it's definitely got to go to the R rating because nobody's going to get on board for it unless it's topping everything else, and how it tops everything else is how crass and raunchy it can be, and I'm okay with that.
I think that's one thing you do have to get Melissa McCarthy credit for, that she's one of the people that can actually carry an R-rated comedy. There's not many people that can do that and make a R-rated comedy actually do well. So hopefully, you know, there's...
She just says some stuff I feel like I would say, or I need to say to people. Some things just happen, and I feel like we need to be besties.
Maybe I'm the only one that does this, but often with this genre specifically, it's something that when I look back at, like, previous decades, I don't look at movies don't come to my mind as much as comedy stars come to my mind. So, like, you know, when you're looking at the 80s, you're thinking of stuff like Bill Murray or Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, etc. You know, you're looking at the 90s, maybe the first names that come to your mind are Jim Carrey, Adam Sandler, Mike Myers, those types of names. I think you could look at the early 2000s and you're getting more into, like, the Will Ferrells along that line. What do you guys see as this decade so far? Who are the comedy stars that are standing out that 10, 20 years back people will look at the 2010s and say that was the decade of these people? Are there any? Is it? I mean, we had a lot of Steve Carell, a lot of Mark Wahlberg, a lot of Melissa McCarthy. Dan, you had a lot of Steve Coogan. Who are the names that will stand out most from this decade? We'll start with you, Dan.
Oh, geez. I think you have a little carryover with Will Ferrell and like the Judd Apatow gang. Paul Rudd kind of comes to mind. I can't think if he's had a lot of films in this past 5 years or not. Man, that's a good question. Geez.
Or is it going to be the people that are just coming onto the scene that will kind of carry that second half of the decade? I know, Barry, you mentioned Amy Schumer. Is that, is it more the people that we're just now starting to see kind of halfway through?
And I guess you would have to say Melissa McCarthy, like you're not, that she certainly has been in at least if you're looking at like box office wise, some of the most notable comedies in the past few years. But you know, honestly, you got to give him credit. But Mark Wahlberg, I think we've talked about him a lot, but he's been in Other Guys, the Ted, to a bunch of different comedies. So he too is, I think, deserves being as one of the bigger comedic names that's going right now.
Yeah.
Barry, what about you?
You know, for me, well, obviously, I think, you know, Jason Bateman was on my list a couple of times, and, you know, he kind of continues to make comedy movies. But, I mean, he's been around for a while, so I don't know if you would say he's just the 2010s. I guess I'm kind of concerned because you mentioned Kevin Hart earlier, and he's putting out a movie every 6 months, and I don't know if any of them are truly, really funny. And you could say the same thing with, like, Josh Gad. Like, he's, like, everywhere. And, I mean, he's probably a funny guy. I mean, I've heard nothing but great things about the play, The Book of Mormon. But, like, in the movie he's in, like, the movies, I don't see it. Like, I'm just not charmed or amused by him. So, you know what I think that the 2010s will be known as? I think it'll be known as, maybe not known as, but I think it'll be the decade of the supporting character. You know, guys like Rob Corddry, who are in, you know, a dozen movies, is kind of a second character that's really funny, and Craig Robinson and some of these other bit characters.
Ed Helms a lot of times.
Ed Helms, you know, these guys that play, you know, a 10 or a 15-minute part in a movie, and it's often one of the funniest parts. You know, but I will say, you know, we mentioned Mark Wahlberg, but I have to say Channing Tatum. I mean, like, he really impresses me with how funny he can be. You know, we eliminated the animated movies, but Lego Movie, you know, he's the voice of Superman, and that's I mean, that would have made my list if I would have had animated films. That's a pure funny movie. But so, I mean, maybe, you know, if he'll continue to bounce around genres, but he'll be kind of come out on the other side as a comedy guy. Rose Byrne is another person that's kind of a secondary character in a lot of these movies, but she's in, you know, Bridesmaids and Spy and The Neighbors and all these other movies. You know, she's always around, and she's not the lead, but she's usually pretty funny. So maybe it'll be the decade of the supporting character.
What about the crew? I mean, we all, or three of us, mentioned This Is the End. What about, like, the Seth Rogen and kind of the crew that was in that film? Any of those guys think might stand out the rest of the decade?
I hope Craig Robinson gets, like, the career he deserves, because I'm a big fan of him. So I think there's some potential there. I'm sure Seth Rogen will continue. I think so. You know, even within, like, the Evan Goldberg films, I think they'll go on. I mean, James Franco, I think he's probably going to be known. He has a pretty wide range of what he can do as an actor, so I think he'll have a career no matter what he does. So, but I do think, like, we're going to see, like, more female-centric comedies. I think kind of Bridesmaids, which I'm surprised no one had on any of their lists.
Yeah, I was shocked too.
I did have it as an honorable mention, but I think that did kind of open the door. And with now Amy Schumer, another person comes to mind is Jenny Slate, who was in Obvious Child last year, which is more of a dramedy, which is why I didn't include it. But I think there are a lot of, like, strong female voices that hopefully might break free and be more well known in the decade coming up. So maybe you'll see a little bit of a shift there.
Amanda, will this be the decade of Michelle Pfeiffer?
It very well could be. Yes.
What isn't the decade of Michelle Pfeiffer?
Serious comedy question for all of you guys. Will Adam Sandler ever make another funny movie?
No.
Man.
You guys tried to laugh at me saying that I would have a ton of Adam Sandler movies, and I did not have one.
No, I was just saying I would. I was saying I would have.
Yeah. I think Adam Sandler's humor's not changed, right? I mean, I laughed at the poo jokes at Billy Madison in 90, when I was 19, 20. And he's still telling poo jokes, and I mean, I enjoy them, but they're just not as funny at almost 40. So, like, you know, it just, I don't know, like, I think comedy evolves, you know, a little bit, and, you know, like, you know, your tastes definitely change a little bit, and I just feel like he's still making the same movie. But, I mean, I don't know, like, I guess a pure comedy, I would say no, but I mean, like, I really liked a movie like 50 First Dates. I mean, that's a funny movie, but it's a romantic comedy. It's more romance, but I thought that was good, you know, so... But has
there been anybody else that we've kind of seen the end of as far as the comedy world? I mean, I think Adam Sandler's basically seems like he's almost done. Is there anybody else that just kind of has seen their end as far as the comedy game goes?
David Spade.
I'm a little worried about Vince Vaughn because he's been choosing a lot of bad films. And I mean, I love Steve Carell too, and maybe in the sense that, but after Foxcatcher next year, maybe he's going to try to be more of a dramatic actor. But him too, like if he's not going to pick better films, it's there's a good chance that he might go away in the sense of being like a well-known, like starring comedic actor. So
what about someone like Will Ferrell?
I think he does so much, like so many different things. Like he has the documentary coming out this year about him with doing the baseball things. He'll just force his way onto things. I don't think he'll ever go away. I like Will Ferrell, but I think he'll be there in some form.
One more name I had for you, Zach Galifianakis.
I don't think he'll be. I don't think he has any desire to be a movie star. I think he
can carry something by himself.
Yeah,
he's just not known enough.
Yeah, I think and I don't think I think he'll go more the realm of being more of a character and here and there. But I think I think he's more in the stand-up and things like that. And I think the whole Hangover thing was more than he anticipated, and he never, I think, ever intended to be like a comedic icon. I think he's been forcibly moving himself from a lot of comedies, but I think he was actually quite good in It's Kind of a Funny Story, but it was not really a comedy.
His stand-up was pretty good back in the day.
Yeah, he's a unique figure for sure.
I think one of the things too that I've noticed just this decade, and we kind of talked about how we went through the decades, and we kind of mentioned people, and like guys like Jim Carrey comes to mind, who when he burst onto the scene, he did like 10 comedies, 15 comedies maybe, and then he tried to start doing more serious stuff, and that's maybe when you could say he kind of lost his way. And I wonder now, like if you see, there's a lot of funny people that are in movies, like Kristen Wiig. I think she's incredible. I think she's very funny. And I mean, she did Bridesmaids and one of the things, but then she was in things like Skeleton Twins, which is a funny movie but not a comedy, and that Bring It to Me, whatever. What's the movie?
Welcome to Me.
Welcome to Me. I mean, that's more serious. The Lifetime movie she did with Will Ferrell. I mean, it's a spoof, but it's a serious movie kind of, so like comedians, comedic actors, like I think they kind of, that we don't get that deluge really of maybe even good comedies, 4 or 5 in a row, and then where they kind of dive off, they kind of just do one comedy, and then once I'm an actor, now I'm going to go try to get my Oscar, and I don't know, we'll have to see if that trend continues with people like Amy Schumer. I mean, I really like Bad Words, or not Bad Words, but Trainwreck. So if her next time around she tries to write a boxing drama or something, it might be a challenge.
Yeah, I think, and too, Kristen Wiig's co-star in Skeleton Twins with like Bill Hader. I think
another guy. Yeah, I
think he could probably be a comedic person, but I think he's already showing he's trying to get into more of a
So is that more of a comment on the people and what their desires are, or is it more of a comment on the types of material that's out there as far as comedy films, or the landscape of how they're received, or how they're critiqued, or how much money they make, or et cetera?
I think it's a type of comedic actors. Look at the 90s, a lot of them were stand-up based, but a lot of them now, like a Kristen Wiig, Bill Hader, they're very much improv based, and improv is a different type of talent. And I think an improv actor probably has a little bit more range than that of, say, like a Chris Rock or something like that they're capable of doing more. So because of that, they I think are pushing themselves out there, and maybe they see things like what happened to Jim Carrey, where after 3 comedies in a row, he couldn't do anything. That in even movies that were good, like The Truman Show, people just kind of rejected because they weren't the Jim Carrey they wanted. So
yeah, and maybe they Kristen Wiig, they offer her Tammy, and she's like, no thanks, I'll I'll pass. So they're like, well, that's okay. We know Melissa McCarthy will do it anyway. So
she'll do anything. Last question for you guys before we kind of wrap this up. We already talked about possibly wanting some more focus on maybe some R-rated content or that type of thing. What other things would you like to see out of the actual material? Getting away from the people, but the actual content or the subject matter or the material that they're using. Is there any specific direction, Dan, you'd like to see them venture into besides maybe R ratings?
Well, I think we mentioned stop it with the sequels because that's not good. I don't know. I think it would just with comedies, the easiest thing is just let the funny people be funny. And allow, kind of like you mentioned with like Louis C.K. with his TV show, he does everything. Well, maybe when you have comics come on or comedic actors come on, let them take care of it and don't make them such like a studio project where it gets noted to death. And you let things just kind of go out there that are strange and wacky and see how they go, and don't test them and change everything just to fit what middle America wants. So I think that'd be
and that's something that a lot of the older stars were able to do because I think they had the respect. Like you cast Bill Murray in a film and you don't try to direct him. You just are like, okay, be Bill Murray, or whoever it might be, someone like in that older yoke. And I don't know if these younger people are not. They just don't have the presence that the directors are allowing them to do that. But I agree with you. I think just let the funny people be funny and get out of their way.
Yeah, and I think one thing, too, that I'd like to see is, maybe not stay away from the sequels, but if people work well together and they're funny together, like, try to get them back together. I think of Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly. I mean, Step Brothers is... like, how can you not laugh at that movie? And even something as dumb as Talladega Nights. I mean, there's a lot of good, funny jokes in that movie. And I mean, they just work well together, and they both have such a good... improv background, and they can kind of play off each other, and like
that would be a rated R.
Yeah,
movie.
It would be rated R.
Worry about people not going to see.
And put them in it together, and just let them do their thing, like you said, and if it works if people work well together and they're funny together, then just because it doesn't work one time, maybe you can try it again. I mean, I know that's maybe there's you can point to failures of that. Like I really like Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson from Wedding Crashers, but things like the Internship, and they don't work quite as well. But I mean, just because that one doesn't, I feel like they just tried to remake Wedding Crashers. Just put them together and let them be themselves, and I think you could still have a funny movie. So,
Amanda, besides seeing a film starring Channing Tatum and Melissa McCarthy, what would you like to see in the next 5 years?
I'm totally down for more Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly that Barry's touching on. I think that they are awesome together. John C. Reilly by himself, I think, is awesome, but pair him with somebody that he can really bounce those improv skills off of and get something good back from. I think that's golden. So I'd definitely be down for that, and maybe throw in a little Melissa McCarthy action in that mix. I don't know.
John C. Reilly, Melissa McCarthy, and Sandy B in the same movie.
Oh, man.
Bro, my dreams just came true.
Getting all the Oscars.
All right, for closing thoughts, just grade this decade so far. So the half decade, we grade out of 1 through 10 scale, just like you guys do, Barry. Okay. So we'll start with Amanda. 1 through 10, what does 2010 through 2014 get for its comedy score?
I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think there were some real gems in this, Tammy aside. And I wasn't as disappointed with the films that are on my list. There is a huge list of disappointments that I have in the comedy realm, but Tammy was not one of them.
All right, Barry, what grade would you give the decade so far?
I'm going to be a little bit harsher. When I was, when you guys invited me on, I kind of started doing some research, and I was kind of looking through comedies that have been released since 2010, and I was kind of writing down the ones that I've seen, and I'd seen more, but I only wound up writing down 20 movies that I thought were funny, and like I'd seen some others that I didn't even bother writing down. So, 20 movies out of the past 5 years, that's not a good number. But the ones that are in here, I will say they're very, very funny. And, I've never kind of done this sort of list before. So, and I think comedy is a genre that it's more challenging to have movies come out and be super successful consistently. Like you could probably go from 2005 to 2009 and kind of have the same problem. There's probably 10 or 15 really good ones, and then the rest are like Tammy. But, so I'm going to give it, I'm going to say 6. So
all right. So 8 from Amanda, 6 from Barry. Dan, where do you stand?
Yeah, it's tough because I think there are. It's depending. Are you looking at the quality of the movies that we within our list or overall? And I think there have been a lot of really bad comedies, just really stinkers. And so I think there are some really good ones, some diamonds in the rough, as you would say. And like I mentioned, maybe there are some even better ones that have yet to really get an audience in years down the line. So right now, I rate it about a 7. There's some things there, but I think it's certainly not nearly as strong as a lot of the other genres that we've done so far.
And as can be seen by the number of comedies that I apparently have not seen yet from this decade, maybe it's an unfair judgment since I've apparently only seen, like Barry, he's seen 20 ones. I think I've only seen 20 total. I am going to come down pretty hard on this decade so far for comedies. I think it's definitely worse than, I know, Barry, you mentioned like if you took like 2000 and 2009, I think you'd be surprised once you start adding them up how many you'd get from that decade. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm thinking of a lot of them that we've even mentioned in some of the discussion that would be on par with maybe the top 2 on my list, and that's about it. So I'm gonna give this a decade so far a 5 out of 10, with hopes that the second half of the decade will pull it up. But right now, I think it's standing right at that teetering line where the second half of the decade could make it below average, or it could bring it up to respectable level. So I'm at a 5 out of 10. So that does it for this episode. We still have a couple more genre series to go through, so if you have been enjoying the series, we still have action and drama before we get into some of the fun end-of-the-year type things covering the whole half decade. So, Barry, one more time, how can people, what's the name of the podcast, and what can they be looking forward to that you guys got coming out real soon?
It's the Tru Bromance Film Podcast. You can find us in all the usual places, iTunes, etc. If you search Tru Bromance, be sure to add film in there, because there is another Tru Bromance podcast trying to horn in on our territory. But we release a show every week. We got some good shows coming up. Amanda's going to be on this week with us. We're going to talk about Mission Impossible 5 and our top bottom spy movies. We're going to do Hiro and I. We're going to do our top 10 favorite films of all time here soon. So try to give you where we come from a little bit, so you can kind of see what we really like from a background. So we got some stuff planned, so hopefully people will enjoy it.
All right. Dan, before we close out and give our information, did we have anything that wasn't mentioned throughout the whole list that was on an honorable mention or anything like that you just want to shout out real quick?
I did have a few. We talked about a lot of my honorable mentions like Easy A and Tucker and Dale, but also just a few others. I mentioned Obvious Child, Ted. Some of the ones that I thought but were more on the drama side were like 50-50 Nebraska. I mentioned The Guard. Anything else? Our Idiot Brother comes to mind. I Love You, Feel Morris. Wanderlust is up there. And
really? Wanderlust? That's Tammy levels.
Oh, speak not against David Wayne.
Getting into the subjective.
I like Wanderlust. I like David Wayne comedy, but some people can be wrong.
Yeah.
In a World that's been mentioned, Beginners is in some other films, but I think there's been a few things in there. So.
I'll mention the ones too that I disqualified because I didn't know I didn't think they blended or swayed enough to the comedy side. So 50-50, like we talked about, St. Vincent, Top 5. Nebraska, and Everything Must Go, the Will Ferrell film that I don't think anybody saw except for me. The other honorable mentions I had that nobody had mentioned was Neighbors and Horrible Bosses. I don't think they were quite on the same level as the ones we were talking about, but besides that, I just had We're the Millers, Bad Words, and that were already talked about. So that was it for me. Amanda, anything we didn't get to?
I think instead of going honorable mention route, I will let you know after reviewing this list. I made a top 5 must-watch comedies list. Number 5.
Bated breath.
Number 5, This Means War from 2012. Tom Hardy and what's his name?
People are signed.
Chris Pine.
Yeah, Chris Pine. Guilt Trip with Seth Rogen and.
These are ones you've never seen before.
These are ones I have not seen.
So these are ones that are on your list of stuff to watch that you haven't seen. Okay, that
Number
helps.
3 is going to be 50-50. Number 2, Voices with Ryan Reynolds. And number 1, About Time, the time travel.
So you haven't seen any of those, so that was all right. Barry, anything you did not get to mention?
I had a couple. Paul, speaking of Seth Rogen and Simon Pegg and his buddy, I had that on my list. I also had Dinner for Schmucks.
Okay.
I don't think it's a.
You yelled at me for Wanderlust.
Yeah, okay. I know. That's kind of my Wanderlust, my Tammy. I don't know. Paul Rudd is he's so funny and so charming, man. I want better things for him, and he just kind of continues to get cast aside. I don't know why he is not in a lot more movies, because I think he could carry them. But so that's kind of my thing. The only thing I don't want to kind of derail and extend this any longer, so I'll shut up then. Never mind.
Okay. All right. So just things to look forward to for Cinema Geeks. We will next episode we have something fun planned. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I will say that hopefully it will be more entertaining than Pixels. And it'll have something to do with that, and I think it's going to be a really fun record. So we're not going to give it quite away yet, but definitely look forward to that. And then of course Dan and I have our ongoing Quentin Tarantino retrospective going on. So we just released recently the Kill Bill episode covering both volumes of that film series, and then we will have Death Trap coming up, Death Proof.
Death Proof, yeah.
Death Proof, goodness. Death Proof coming up with our next episode, so be on the lookout for that. Dan, how can people follow you on Twitter?
By going on Twitter and following at Movie Revolt.
Barry, how about your personal Twitter?
My personal Twitter is at DarthG007.
Amanda?
Hard Candy Mandy, eyes, no eyes.
And mine is at Optimus Solo. We'd like to thank Barry for coming on. Hopefully he will come on again, and hopefully he'll still let Amanda be on the Mission Impossible show, or at least let her go over her top or bottom spy.
We're just going to have Amanda come on to talk about Mission Impossible, because I'm terrified to hear her spy list.
I'm terrified as well.
Is number one going to be spy? Is there a chance?
You'll never know.
Actually, they will if they tune in and listen. All right, so that does it for this week. Tune in next time for your next chance to listen to the Cinema Geeks. Thanks, Barry.
Oh, yeah, no problem, man. I'm glad. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, I'd love to come on again. So
for sure, and don't eat as many wings next time.
Oh man, I'm telling you, that's sound advice forever, man. Like all you can eat, and I went there and I was like, why is it so crowded? Because the parking lot was jammed, and I went in and I don't mind. I mean, I was going to sit at the bar anyways, but that was the only place open. And I get up there and it's also right at the end of happy hour, so they won't even take my food order. They're just like, I got to get all these beers out, and that's fine, just bring me 2 of them. And then since it's happy hour and it's ending, right. And so they just kept bringing them out, man. You put another order in? It's $20. I got to get my money's worth. Yeah, sure. So I almost had to roll out of there, but.
The problem with don't eat as many wings advice is it expires 12 hours after you've gotten that advice.
Yeah. You smell them, it's really I'm going to eat them.
It's like, I can eat more wings.
Well, and I already had them twice this week, so it's like, yeah.
Do you get different flavors, or it's all the same time?
I go to this place, I get the same flavor. It's called Buffalo Wing Factory and Pub. I don't know if they have them where you guys are, but they have this. It's a flavor called Suicide Ranch, so it's a really spicy ranch flavor, and it's top notch for me, so I love it quite a bit. So that's the one I go to. But I was going to say, I know I'll let you guys go. Do you think that movies action movies that are funnier now than I think they have been in the past? So especially the Marvel movies, like Ant-Man, Captain America. Those movies have more jokes than any other action films do per
right.
Cap. So.
We should have brought that up a little bit, because I think comedy. I think all our commentary on comedies was more so about straight comedies, because I think comedy has shifted, and it's not. You're seeing a lot more of it in other films, like in the dramedies, in the action hero, superhero type stuff, and it's just not in the straight comedies that we're getting the good ones.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what I was going to say at the end, but I didn't want to derail it and kind of latch it on. But all the movies that are the fringe, like Dan was talking about, like 50-50 and these other things. I mean, right. they're heavy on the drama, but there's tons of jokes in them too. So, and St. Vincent for me, it kind of falls in that list. I think that's heavy on the drama, but there's a lot of jokes. So it's
Oh, I agree with that. I think there's been a lot more, like, even coming of age or even in straight dramas where you're getting a lot more spice. And like you said, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, those are being funnier. I think that's a great point.
I think it's part of it. It's hard to make a broad comedy. You know, people are going to the movies less, so they're trying to make broad comedies, which is hard to do. So they you know, it's become really generic, and that's why you see a lot of sequels, because it's like, this comedy actually did well, so let's just try to do that again, and then that never works out. So.
Well, like I said, hopefully they'll turn the corner and we'll get some straight comedies that are good too. I miss like stuff like Step Brothers and Wedding Crashers and all that. So
I know for a fact the Cops doesn't start till 4.
All right. See what you have to look forward to
I'm
tomorrow.
Excited, man. I'm ready.
Don't make fun of my outfit or my hair. I'm coming straight from the wedding reception.
And you might not want to use the camera because at 11 o'clock I'll be about 15 beers into my evening. It could be a rough night. Hide the pandas, because Hyrule will comment on them again. He won't shut up about the pandas.
I know he is.
There's too many of them to move.
I felt like I need to set them up in the back, like playing a poker
you
game
really
or
should.
something.
If you have them set up doing something, he will lose his mind.
And then have something hiding them, and then you move the camera, and all of a sudden it's them. All right.
I'm gonna have them with beers and like a poker game and some bras laying around and some strip poker happening and something crazy.
All right. I will be in the other room.
I'm going to lock him out. He's getting locked out of the room now for a change.
It's a good time.
All right. Talk to you later, Barry.
All right, thanks, guys. Take it easy.